Should I start over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay up there.
Hello?
Hello.
What are you doing?
Yeah, something.
We're back.
We are. Made it.
Made it. So it's September 11th, and we are recording this podcast, but I think it's, only appropriate to pause for a second before we go into it.
Yeah.
And, just kind of have a moment. So we'll say, we'll take that pause now. All right. Okay. So you are half of an Iron Woman now.
Yes.
Zach Evanesh, by the way, gave me permission to slurp on the podcast, so.
Okay.
Anyway. You're half of an Iron Woman. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels really good. I was thinking about, last week, like I had this thing, which actually it's funny because Olivia, I think, shared with me. She has the same little, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it a mental tick.
A tick? Oh, okay. Interesting choice of words. I probably would have gone with something a little different, a little bit more definitive.
No, I mean, like, I remember driving up to regionals one time and being really nervous.
Yeah.
And being on the drive and thinking, in 4 days, I'm going to be driving back. It's going to be over.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember thinking about that sitting here last week. Like, just, it's sort of more about the inevitable, like, time marches on. And
Sure.
Even thinking about it on the way up. On our drive, like the world is going on while people, like right now, someone's doing some amazing thing, and we're sitting here in our living room and having coffee. So yeah, it's kind of just interesting how that's just the sun will come up again tomorrow.
Yeah, and I actually wrote about that this morning under a slightly different context, with it being obviously 9/11 and how for many, I think for a lot of us, probably that could remember or were at formidable years in our life, that day kind of seemed like this, the earth stopped spinning around the sun. Right. And, time was kind of suspended. And for the 3,000 plus victims and their families, it might feel like time is still suspended. And we obviously know people who have lost husbands and wives and sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, and obviously in the military community we know too many, but for those families, that harsh reality that the world is still spinning around the sun, right, and time does march on, is the reality of their life.
Yeah.
And it's obviously sad and it's dark and whatnot, and man, it can be really dark, but I think that for us to squander the opportunity that we do have is a disservice to ourselves, to them, to everyone, and really being grateful of the fact that we do have time. Yeah. And we don't know how much it's going to be, but we do have the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was, I mean, it happened to be on Sunday, so a few days before 9/11. But that was, there's, whether it's 9/11 or people who have lost loved ones to other things, whatever the circumstances are, or people who are unable to say, like, yes, I want to go do some effort like this. Like, that was something, I don't want to say a priority, that sounds so task, like, check it off the list, but that was, like, really important to me as a thing for this effort. Like, that was, for that day, really being very aware and conscious of appreciating, like, that I had the ability to do that, to go out and be biking and seeing this scenery and swimming in this, like, just to participate in life in that way, and to be alive, and to be able to challenge myself. And that's something to not, to just focus in on, like, the time or the effort, or, like, just go, or I should be faster, like, that's such a waste. And I was really happy that I was able to have those moments of really appreciating it.
You talked a little bit about wanting to be grateful and aware during your training. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's so easy to say.
Right.
There were times during your training that you were, and you, of everything, right? Like, grateful and aware of everything, It's easy to say gratitude is not something that, like, is hopefully right now, people aren't like, oh, gratitude, what's that? Like, it's generally something that people know, but it's just like anything else, like, knowing it and doing it are totally different. It's easy to know, and it's easy to say.
And it's easy to do that when things are, I mean, you've always said this, like, yes, of course it's easy to be your best or do things like that when it's easy. Yeah. You're on vacation, it's like, oh, this is awesome, I'm so grateful.
Right.
It's when it's challenging, or you don't want to be maybe thinking about that, it's hard, and now you have to choose to focus on the gratitude.
Yeah. And how did that, can you speak to that during the Ironman?
Yeah, I mean, my experience, during it, I feel like it was very easy in the water, on the bike, to have that time. I didn't feel like I had to overcome some physical obstacle. It wasn't painful at that point. And that was good. That was great to be able to, be swimming and thinking, wow, like, this feels good. This is awesome. Like, this is great. Biking was beautiful. I think it got very hard when I started to run, and it did not feel good. And it was painful. And that's where that, romantic, like, this is beautiful, look at the scenery, was no longer at the forefront of my thoughts. Mm-hmm. But, like, that, I was also aware of that, and, that was kind of the time where it was probably the most valuable for me.
You want to take a pause real quick and check on...
Your son is eating something upstairs.
No, sir. Riley, you stay. You stay.
Just
No.
put him in your lap.
Come on.
You're so bad.
He eats the wall
I know.
to get back at
I
us.
know.
Come here, Charlie.
Go lay with Daddy. Go. Come on.
Hey,
Oh my God.
are you kidding me?
No.
Come here.
Lay down.
Come up. Good boy.
Lay down.
Okay.
Lay down with Daddy.
Good boy.
Okay.
All right, mister. Okay.
All right.
Look at this.
We have
Look at my son.
We have a guest. We have a guest.
Charlie, there's the camera. All right.
So, yes.
You know, it was you're running and the the thrill of the experience had washed away.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you're in the water and you're like, oh, this is great. I'm swimming. I can be grateful
Right.
for whatever.
Well, what's interesting is, so going through it sort of in terms of what happened. Saturday night, and I think this is back to like last week, we sat and talked about belief and belief in myself versus confidence. And we got up there, had a great day, was feeling good.
Yep.
And then Saturday night was rough. I was like struggling with, I don't know, my confidence, I suppose.
Or are you struggling? Okay. You're going on.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking like, what am I doing? And this is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if I guess it wasn't so much belief in like, can I do it? Like, do I want to do this? Like, what's it going to be like? And that's something I've talked about, like the anticipation of how's that going to be and the projection and, you know, I had gone back to the hotel and I texted you like, I need help.
Yeah, I mean, it was at 7:30 at night. I was out with, where was I?
You went to get my Skittles.
Oh, yeah.
You were really adamant about me having Skittles, so you went to get Skittles, and then, yeah.
Yeah. Right, and so you were going to sleep anyway. So I'm going to read a question that we got that Anthony Falco submitted.
Okay.
And he submitted 2 questions, and it was from last week's episode where, you know, confidence versus belief. And they're 2 really good questions, and I think anyone watching, listening will appreciate these questions. So Anthony, thank you, bro. I'm going to read them. What are some strategies to deal with doubt? Or how does self-doubt play into the confidence belief conversation? So what are some strategies to deal with doubt? Or how does self-doubt play into the confidence belief conversation? What is your experience with those questions? What are those questions kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because, so that was what I was experiencing. A lot of doubt.
Yeah.
Overwhelming amount of doubt of everything. And I guess in the past, maybe I would have thought like, okay, like how do you overcome that doubt? How do you like beat it? And I think, you know, one of that conversation that we had when you came back was really pretty incredible, for obviously the race, but applicable to everything. And I guess how I interpreted some of your coaching, like, I don't know that you can like overcome, like, it's not about overcoming it. It's kind of like accepting, like, yes, there's doubt. Okay. I see that as like doubt equaling kind of some confidence issues.
Yeah.
And for me, like, one of the things you said or messaging was like, okay, like, what are you going to do with that? And so one of the things you said is when the confidence targets and all the like there wasn't a bike I did that was like, wow, that was really hard. You know, that really called on my belief. There was no run I did that did that.
You ran, what was the furthest you ran in
training? I did 4.5 miles in training.
And 13.1 on race day.
And 13.1 on race day. I rode 42 miles on the bike in training. So, but that was one of the things you said that was like, yeah, of course, like when those things are done and kind of the fun is gone, and like, because that's what I feel like doubt is, there's some fear there, you know, or some kind of like, what, I'm not sure obviously about this. And so I guess what I'm saying, trying to get to is basically like, yes, that's when, that's not good, but that's where like you really show up.
Yeah.
Before that, the confidence, like that's the same thing we're saying, like that's easy. Like it was easy to sign up for the race. Like,
yeah.
You know, but that was kind of like, okay, this is where, and I don't know, that was like there was some relief in that, knowing like, this is what I signed up for. This is what I'm here to do, to learn about myself. And if it was just a breeze and there was never a moment of doubt or, you know, any of that, then you kind of have to question, like, is this really challenging enough? So in that, like when I had that moment on Saturday night, it kind of gave me a little bit of like, okay, not looking forward to that, but sort of like, yes, of course. Like,
so, well, yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to lead you to try to get to the answer that I'm thinking about. So I'll just say, one, I think that strategies to deal with doubt. I have not found, and I do face a lot of doubt and self-doubt as well. And some of my pursuits have been overwhelmingly doubtful that successful completion from a statistical standpoint will be achieved. Mm-hmm. Personally, maybe with others, like that's a very real thing. I don't know if there's a single strategy that can really deal with the doubt other than acknowledging it and then choosing an action.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I think I was very firm and strong and direct and, you know, not really pulling any bunches with you in that, like, if you try to deal with the doubt by denying it mm-hmm. and by pushing it away, you're only going to make it grow.
Right.
And that's where I really completely disagree with people that say, don't listen to it. Right. Tell it to shut up.
Right.
Like you talk
it.
to somebody and they're not listening to you, what do? You talk louder.
Right.
Very rarely do you try to like change what you're saying. Because if it's like, they don't hear me, I'm going to talk louder. Charlie, come down here. Charlie, come.
He's your son.
Oh my God, can you?
Yes, I'll go.
Hold on. We're a mess today.
You are.
By the way, so for you guys listening, the top of our stairs, we don't have a door going down to our basement. And I put a rogue box at the top of the stairs to keep them out. And Charlie was whining, as you probably
Maybe
heard.
Rogue can make dog blockades next.
Yes.
Well, so
anyway,
yes,
so
talking louder.
So you try to deny the doubt, and it strengthens it.
Yeah.
I made the comparison to what happened in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. At the beginning, we were rolling around in no armor, light skin, like fast, you know, whatever trained in. Yeah, and there's still like the armor was maybe there lightly skinned or whatever. In some cases, not so much at all. And then it was, okay, well, we realized that armor is protective. So we're going to put armor on these vehicles. And all we really did was give an incentive to, you know,
raise
who we were fighting to improve their lethality of munitions.
Sure.
Then IEDs came about. It was basically bombs under the things. And we said, okay, well, in order to prevent that, we need to put armor under the hull, mm-hmm. right? And then they came in and the Iranians got involved and said, okay, EFPs, a copper slug that punches through. Like, there's munitions that defeat tanks. Tanks are gigantic things, right? Thick armor. And there's still munitions that defeat it. So all the time, what we did was we just further sensitized and accelerated the lethality of the munitions we would face later on. And I think that doubt is very much the same. Acknowledging it is I think personally from my experiences, like that's the first step towards moving past it.
Yeah.
Or sidestepping it. And I don't think, I also said to you that like anybody, it's the same thing with like quitting. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have thoughts of maybe quitting the training?
Yeah.
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 And not fulfill, like you
of course.
You shared with me that one time that you were like, well, you know what, like I'm good. Like I don't need
right.
to do
right.
the race to extract the value.
Sure.
And you know, a lot of that stuff, a lot of mindset people out there, companies. I mean, I worked for one, and it was like your definition of mental toughness is rubbish, because it's like don't ever think about quitting. And I said to you, like I thought about quitting
right.
in the Q course
right.
a lot. Does that make me weak? Maybe.
Yeah.
I guess not weak enough.
Yeah.
So to say if somebody tells me I've literally never thought about quitting, I would say to them, then you've literally never done anything.
Yeah, and that was something you said also that was.
Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of times. One, you know, there was.
But that's the thing, and like, and that was just what for me clicked. There's some relief, like that's what I mean by there's some relief in saying like, okay, like I can acknowledge the doubt is there. And yes, like I feel like doubt or that thought of maybe quitting, like, yeah, it is a reflection of that you are doing something that involves a risk, a challenge, because if there isn't doubt, if there isn't the thought of quitting, then yeah, like it's just not that much of a challenge. I mean, and that's such a simple thing. And when you said that, you know, that was really like, okay, not like normalizing it, but yeah, like, okay, that's part of the whole thing. You can't just cut that part out. But I, you know, and that was one of the things, but then what you went on to say is really, you know, kind of to tie it back to where we started with appreciation. And I mean, that's great, but at a certain point in any effort and it could be anything, it could be a physical effort, or maybe you decide you're going to start a business and it's going great and you got all these ideas and it's awesome. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, the momentum is not moving. Mm-hmm. You start to have doubts. And like, as you described it, kind of stripping away the layers. So for me, like, yep, the swim, the bike, I got off the bike and then changed, had a cookie, and then it really hurt. And like, that is where, you know, you said like, now you've stripped away all those layers. And that's where you're now finding the value, you know, like, okay, this is where the race really, one of the benefits begins, because, you know, it's no longer just easy to find gratitude and easy to move through it. And, you know, that really, like, when I started running, I was really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've thought about quitting that much in anything I've ever done. It just, like, just the thought of, like, how far I still had to go. And you're seeing people, what's incredible is you're seeing people coming back on mile 11, 20 years older than me. One woman was, like, literally dragging her leg, like, had some sort of physical disability. And it's, like, that woman, like, yeah, she probably had some doubts. She's freaking doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, people out there walking who couldn't run, but like, you know what, they're gonna keep moving. Yeah. So, you know, I did have that, you know, your coaching, and that was just that pretty much was what got me to finish and to get me continuing to move on the run. So it was pretty incredible.
Well, it was an opportunity presented to you. And what you did was take it and apply it. That's the biggest thing with any of this stuff. You know, and I think that the from where I come from and from from like a what can you do or whatever. When you get to that moment or have that feeling, it truly is a mindset to be able then to say like, all right, here I am. Mm-hmm. Now we go. And I think I told you, like, to crack a sick smile. And like, it's not bravado, it's not chest pumping, it's not talk, a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk. It's not that. You're not talking your way into that situation. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, yeah, if you are somebody who believes that you are somebody that can persevere, that shows up for the hard things, that wants to challenge themselves because they understand in challenge there's growth, then the presence of the doubt, the presence of the challenge is a sign that you are there. And now when you are there, what will you do? How will you be? And that's only something the individual in that can have. You know?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
like,
and that's the, you know, I feel like we've gone kind of back and forth with the belief and like, who are you? You know, and those two things are very closely tied together. And, you know, I know one of the things that initially was like hard to quite grasp that you know, some of the Strong Fit podcasts, they talk about like I'm not just like going and doing the race, but becoming the person, or not just finishing the race, but becoming the person that finishes the race, or that endures that. And the difference there is like you're identifying that, like really knowing who you are. And yeah, on that run, I mean, I was, you know, talked about talking to yourself, that's mindset, having a conversation with yourself. I was literally talking to myself out loud.
Good.
And one of the things was like, you know, just saying the word like, yep, like this is where like the belief is. Like, I believe that I can finish this. And what is the smallest thing required of me right now? Like, okay, do I believe I can keep my feet moving? Like, yes, okay. And I believe that who I am is someone who will continue to work, you know, it's kind of simple, but continuing to ask yourself those questions or remind yourself, you know, there were definitely some hills. It was a very hilly course. And they weren't, you know, it's funny, someone was passing me and he said something about like, oh, it's mentally so tough because you ran the course out and back.
Yeah.
And his point was like, when you're running down a hill, you know you're going to have to run up that hill. And it was kind of interesting because I was aware there were hills, but I really wasn't thinking about that, which for me was progress, like not like projecting that now when I come back, and yeah, the only thing about the hills for me, which was kind of cool because of what we talked about, like, and the sprint race I did earlier this year, it was like this big hill. Everybody knew the hill. The medal says like, conquer the hill, you know, and it was a 1 mile literally straight uphill, like a steep hill.
Sure.
That was the start of the 3 mile run. And we talked about it, and you're like, you know, you didn't say this, but like basically like, if I walked on that hill, like don't bother coming home. That was kind of the message. And I didn't, you know, now it wasn't a sprint up the hill,
sure,
but like I can keep trying.
Sure.
I can continue to try. And if I can't, then I will walk. But I miraculously continued to run. So for this, I thought, and I did realize we came down a couple of rather large hills. And I didn't think like, oh crap, I have to run up that thing. I was like, okay, that is a hill I'm going to run up, you know, and that was
period.
Yeah. You know, it was cool. It was
That is cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things is like, people love excuses. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this with John, our friend from the Do, an amazing photographer. and we were talking about how, like, what happens when there's a situation or you meet a person that something kind of big has happened to. So I think we were, talking about loss or TBIs or that kind of a thing. And it's like people have the script.
Right.
And they have these pre-programmed questions or answers, comments, right? Like little talking points. It's like watching news. Like, okay, the old white dude with white hair is going to talk about this. The young guy is going to talk about this. The attractive gal is going to talk about this, and blah 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 blah. And like, that's what a lot of it is.
Right.
We have these programmed things, and like, fuck that.
But what's funny is often what we were talking about, those, they're kind of often negative.
Totally.
Like, so when I told people that I was doing Lake Placid, I got all kinds of things. Oh, that's such a hilly course. Oh, that water is going to be so cold. And it was so strange. It was really cool. Mike Moran, who is a member who's done 2 full Ironmans there.
Yeah.
He was probably one of the only people, and he was super helpful in like coaching the actual triathlon.
He was a proper
experience.
triathlon coach.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
No offense, but
no, I'm taken.
But he was like never. That was something I really appreciated. Was there wasn't like, oh boy, he's done twice as much, 4 times as much as I've done, and it was like, that's great. It was just always positive.
Well, and I think one of the things with Mike, Mike's a
disarming.
Stud. Disarming too, but like, and from a mindset standpoint too, and I do think it is worth mentioning that, like, yes, and we talked about it up until Saturday night. Like, mindset is a form of self-communication.
Right.
It's a conversation you have with yourself that drives actions, though, and like that's the thing. It's because we can chat all day, and we had plenty of chats, but it's like, okay, then what's the follow through and the expression of that? And that's why, from a mindset variety or mindset development, like, there is no one singular mindset. And this is where I think the entire personal development sector is wrong. Where, like, mindset, and yes, Carol Dweck, great, smarter than I will ever be. Growth mindset, fixed mindset. So it's like, okay, so you're telling me I'm either one or the other, or a combination thereof. That's 2 mindsets.
Right.
There are varieties of mindsets, and I think that what we can do is, or what I do, is I break them down into different types of mindsets. That's a big part of the practice. I arm you and equip you with 12 mindsets that you can engage in action and observe in your everyday life. 12 out of possibly infinite amounts. Yeah. Yes. And of course, some of them, there's, I think, a skill and an art to making them sticky and making them rememberable and all of that. And that's what I do. And that's what I do very well. But one of the best mindsets that I think Mike demonstrates consistently throughout just who he is as a human being is consider the possibility.
Yeah.
And when we consider the possibility and when we look at what those words provide us or encourage us to do, consider means to, like, think, and the possibility means to kind of dream a little bit.
Right.
And then it also takes something with the possibility of, like, can you actually do it?
Yeah.
And some stuff like this, the gal dragging her leg, or who's the guy?
Hoyt. We watched that video with the kids.
Yeah, like
carrying basically
in tow,
and his son.
And so it's like, when that self-doubt, and back to Anthony's question, is like, how does self-doubt enter into the conversation of belief and confidence? It's like, I would recommend you consider the possibility. And with that, you're like, the possibility of doing something and having that be a positive approach to it.
Right.
Not the silver lining, not, rainbows and unicorns flying around, but like,
and I don't think it's
positively.
Right.
You don't say, like, I'm not going to quit.
Right.
Right. And that's what a lot of people say. Mental toughness is not quitting. It's like, I don't think the presence of something is the absence of something else.
Right. It's not a, like, okay, well, I will defeat the doubt with this. It's all living in this in you. It's not like a trade-off.
Right.
But you know what's funny about the practice. So when we did week 1 on Monday.
Yeah.
And then the race was Saturday, and week 1 has burpees in it.
Yeah.
And I've never had this experience before doing burpees in 12 years of burpees on the same floor, that same gym floor. But this time I got like burns on my knees, and I got little scabs on them. Mm-hmm. And the mindset, I mean, can I?
Yeah, of course.
Is the note that week was like best effort, considering like what does that mean?
Yeah.
Best effort. And so when I was riding on Sunday on the race, a couple of times when I looked down, I saw my little scabs on my knees, and it reminded me of the mindset, the best effort.
Yeah.
And it really was like such a cool thing to be able to have that conversation with myself. Like, what is that right now? My best effort when I was doing burpees on Monday had nothing. I mean, there were some things I extracted from there that were really great that I applied on Sunday, but like now I was biking in the middle of this race, and like what's my best effort now? And then on the run, and so it is really cool to have those anchor points. And yes, like now I've done it twice, so it sticks even more, I think. But to your point, I think we were talking about it last week or previously about the practice, like that's kind of the idea, that then you can have something to refer back to.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And the other thing though about the so it's funny, when I think I was biking, and I towards the end of the bike, and I passed one of the Ironman like signs or whatever, and their thing is like anything is possible. And you know, like reading that, I think I cried coming out of the swim, out of the bike, like. But yeah, there's something about that's just so hopeful.
Yeah.
That is a much stronger thing than any doubt you can have. You know, when you realize like, yes, think that is possible. And you just have to decide you're going to consider that. It doesn't have to be bigger than or better than, or I'm going to.
Right.
You just have to be like, okay, and you've had a podcast about like, like, yes, I guess it was maybe the belief, but like, what if you could believe, and that ties back to the belief. Like, even if you're not there with that, like, consider that you could believe that it's possible. And that's like step 1. But, I thought it was one of the things I took away from that race was, there were over 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like fascinating to me and really inspiring that 2,000 people, and many of them, as we said, like didn't look like athletes. You wouldn't see this person on the street and be like, wow, that is a fit human.
Right.
Yeah, showed up. You aren't allowed to listen to music.
Love it.
You're just like there enduring whatever that means. And I was bottom of the pack. I finished close to the end. You
were in like 80% top.
Yeah.
On average.
So these people, these women, whatever, even if you just look at my age group or older women than me, I mean, they showed up and probably had some kind of challenging experience at some point. Everybody probably did. I mean, and they did it. And that was just, you're all around you are these people that are doing it. And that's what's really cool. Like, yes, it is possible because they're doing it. The people that are walking, limping.
Yep.
I passed this woman who was probably 30 pounds overweight. I would say she was 60. Struggling. But, like, she was walking. Like, there was a fight going on there, Yeah. And it's like, God, like, how can that not inspire you? And, like, totally. Yes, that's possible. So it was really, like, there was just so much that came from that had nothing to do with my time, even though naturally...
Of course. I mean, but that's the thing.
There was a little bit of, like, wow, I thought... But, some of it, too, the bike, could I have biked faster? Yeah. Like, I was thinking yesterday, I went into the gym and just did a little workout. I felt like moving and having a little intensity, and of course got my heart rate up, you know. And it like just reminded me, like, it is crazy that for my pace, or for the average person, I think's pace, not elite, you're not really like out of breath
during the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But that notion of like enduring in every possible way, physically, and like, it's not like an oxygen exchange issue, you know. But so could I have pushed harder on the bike? Could I have like gotten to that point of being out of breath? But like, you know, we talked about spending time in that transition. I spent 18 minutes. I probably did break a record on Sunday. I probably broke the record for the longest transition time, and I will hold that proudly. But you can't have it all. Like, okay, I wanted to enjoy it.
Sure.
And that meant
but
not being freezing on the bike. So
yeah.
I said to myself, and it's funny, like, in the past, I think I would have probably beat myself up a lot more over that. Like, but then it was like, no, okay, I'm doing this. I don't care. I'm not prioritizing my time. I'm prioritizing the ability to enjoy. And if I'm freezing for 2 hours, or damn near close to my shaking, like, freezing state, that would be more of a disappointment to me. You know?
It would have been really disappointing if you had an average transition time, which is in the 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. So you tripled that. It would be really disappointing to hear that you blew through the transition and you didn't dry off, or you didn't, you know, whatever, take care of yourself, warm up, get your body temperature up a bit, got on that bike, and 13 miles into the bike, couldn't then, like, you were still cold and windy, and it was not great conditions. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't the day before, which was a beautiful, like warm day. And if that robbed you, not completely, because you still do have the opportunity, and that's what we talk about, like, you still do have the opportunity to be grateful, and to be observant, and to be aware, and to find something. And yes, even when it sucks, like, there is always an opportunity. Now, sometimes, it's probably not going to happen, you know, and that's okay. But in something like this, let's just say it robbed you of the opportunity to view those mountains, to look at those mountain streams, those, just the view, and not be grateful. Yeah. Or to miss the 60-year-old gal fighting, and to be just head down, looking at the pavement, you know, just missing the value all around you. Right. For the sake of trying to cross the finish line. Yes,
for an effort that I wasn't trying to be. I'm not someone that, what's the 20-minute difference, 30-minute difference?
Yeah.
That is, and I recognize it, like, coming across the finish line was emotional, and seeing the time, and there was a moment of like, I thought I was going to do this. Wow, I was so wrong. Oh my gosh. That took a long time. There's like a lot going on.
Yeah.
And it is. We have talked about this. Like, there's an ego element there. Like,
of course.
But, you know, I did take a second and sit down and kind of like get my shit together and think, like, and try to really embrace, like, I'm really proud of that. Like, it's so easy, I think, too, for people to, like, brush it off, or like, and, you know, like, I am really proud of it. You know, it really also, like, meant a lot. There were a lot of people who messaged me or saw me and said, like, great job and congratulations, and acknowledge, like, being acknowledged does matter. I mean, I think we all as humans could agree, and, like, it was a hard effort. It was a lot of training. It was all the way up until, I mean, so Saturday night, well, I'll say that in a second, but, like, so, you know, it is very appreciated for the people that
that's super
said
cool.
that, and were
that's really cool.
But so Saturday night, one of the things you said to me, which was, again, very helpful in getting me into a good place, and you wrote it in the card you gave me, it was like, just all you got to do is get wet. Get in the water, get wet. That's the hardest part. Then the thing starts. Because at the time I was thinking about that, like, you know, I wrote about it. It's kind of like I've had that experience before at like a CrossFit event. There's all the nerves, there's all the noise and everything, and then it's go, and it's like you kind of break through like the sound barrier, and like then you're in it. And you're like, okay. So you were saying like just get in the water.
Yeah.
And we stood on the beach for like 50 minutes trying to get in, and then it was like frantic and beep, and like you're in the water.
Right.
And I thought to myself, like, I'm in it. That was the hardest part. I did it. Here we go. And then I got to the run, and I was like, Bill is a fucking liar. That was not the hardest part.
Yeah.
That was not hard at all. This is the hardest part.
Sure. And at that time, what you needed was a kick in the ass to start.
Yeah.
Because if it's like, hey, listen, when you're 10 minutes into the run, like that's going to be the hardest part. So just get to minute 11.
Sure.
That's so untouchable and so beyond.
Well, and it's also like, why... Yeah, that's also a projection that, like, it is true though that yes, once you're there, you're going to continue.
Maybe not.
Right, but it's the like saying I'm going to start this thing.
But it's also like it's also, and from my take on coaching, and one of the things I try to provide people is that I didn't say to you, just get past the third buoy. Right. There's a number associated with that. I didn't say, hey, just make the turn. Yeah. Hey, have the beach. Just get the beach on your right side. That would have made meant that you would come around. No, get wet. Mm-hmm. That is independent of any result, any outcome, any measurement. And that's the thing about, I think, a lot of this measurement stuff, and I should say not every sport, but sports that are based upon measurements, track, Ironmans, CrossFit, that kind of a thing. My opinion is that, and from over a decade of observing this stuff, and over a lifetime of a sport that doesn't really have measurement, soccer, there's no data with that. Right. Yeah, goals and this and that, but like you're not talking about pass completion. It's not. Sports science really doesn't bother with soccer much, which is good. Maybe it does now, but anyway, measurement creates disordered thinking. And it is a misguided approach to your experience. Yeah. And it's like a lot of this stuff, because you're not going to world championships. You're not...
Right. The top guy, he needs to, if he wants to go, he's got to be looking at, am I on track? What's this look like? Beyond that, how is the data helping?
No, and it's not. And like, there are so few people who are going there, and you are not that person. And this isn't like, oh, well, what about consider the belief? Like, okay, fine. Maybe if that's what you want to do. Is it possible for you to become a world champion? Yes. Right. This
Quit
race?
Your life?
No, it's not. So, that's one of the things I think that really sort of, from like tips and strategies and approaches, looking at yourself, looking at your actions. What can you do? Absent of any measurement, absent of any, result. Right. And that's really fucking hard. It is incredibly hard to not latch onto the data or the number.
And to project. And I think that's the thing too is, like it was kind of a low-hanging fruit, as you say, like getting started.
Yeah.
So the doubt, like going back to the doubt thing, like how much doubt do I have that I can get in the water? Well, that doubt was pretty small. How much doubt, if you ask me, did I have about completing the 13 miles? That was probably bigger. So it's like, okay, well, let me at least, if I focus on starting in the water. But I think the other thing too, because we're talking about, and it's like so funny how I was thinking like, well, a half Ironman at that pace, like it's not really that big of a deal. Like Mike did a full Ironman, all these people, and these people did it faster, and then it's like it is a big deal. It is a big deal for me.
Right.
And I think the point though is you don't have to do, like I don't have to do an Ironman, so it's not like less than or comparatively. I think one of the things I was thinking about is like we all have that feeling that I had on Saturday night about things in our life.
Yes.
Like this is going to be hard. I don't know if I can do this. I feel like I felt like sick. I told you, like, I felt sick.
Yes.
I think I had I thought I had the flu. I'm going to wake up sick and, okay, you know what, Bill? You're welcome for being your hardest client. The point is...
Goodness, you really are.
The point is, though, I think people sometimes look at, oh, Mike probably didn't feel like that. Or maybe not for that, but like other people aren't feeling like this. And it's like, yes,
people
whether
don't know
it's
shit, though.
Whether it's someone probably, that's the same feeling when we have people come to the gym who are nervous about starting.
Yeah.
And that's something to just remember, and why I think it is, then you have that empathy for people. Like, I do know it doesn't matter the scale.
Yeah.
We've all had that feeling.
Yeah.
But then when you can continue on despite it,
right,
the feeling that's on the other side is incredible, and you can share that with people. Like, I did it, you know, I still did it. And
yeah, but here's the deal. It's a lot more comfortable to convince yourself that that person is different,
right.
and didn't have that same feeling.
Right.
And you're wrong. And it's not something I'm happy to say, but it's human nature, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody, for sure, thankfully, not everybody. But there's a lot of people who are super insecure about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and who can't possibly imagine that so-and-so feels the same.
Right. Well, they have a special
because then
gene.
What does that say
right.
about them?
Sure.
And so, you know, yeah, like...
And that's sometimes the thing, like, yeah, like looking at those people that finished well ahead of me, older than me, like, it would be so easy for me to make up something to make myself feel better about that.
Of course.
Well, they train, or they can't do a muscle up, or...
Right.
And it's like, that's so sad. That would be so sad that I would need to take away from their achievement because I feel less than. And,
right.
and that we all have that experience. And whether it's people that didn't say good job to me.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But what an opportunity for, you know, to see people like, and yeah, look at other people and be like, it, instead of looking at it as like making an excuse, to say like, wow, that's someone that I can learn from.
Right.
You know, and that's, I think, what, you know, I've learned like a tremendous amount from you, and it was very inspiring, because a lot of my stuff, not to compare, and that's part of it. Like, I could look at, I said to you the other day, like, I feel ridiculous. I'm talking about overcoming the fear of getting in the water, and you jumped out of a plane. And it's like, okay, those two things, like, you can't, the point is, I can be inspired by, and I did think about, like, okay, like, you did that. Who do I have to be to follow suit, you know? And that's not taking away from you or making up something about, well, you're just mentally tougher. Right. You're just stronger. Like, that would be really easy. And I'm sure, I know for a fact, people probably think that about you or me, like, well, right, okay, well, they're whatever. But you've had your doubts. We've all had that. And it doesn't matter the scale. And it's to look at that person and say, like, wow, they're human. They had doubts, and they still held their belief. Yeah. And that is something I hope, like, I hope part of my experience is somewhat inspiring, you know, to other people. You know, I mean, I think about the row, and everybody can do that. The row marathon. Yeah. Holly's team, Amy, you know, my mom thought about being on their team, didn't do it, but they really inspired her, I think, when she saw them do it. Yeah. And now she's saying she's going to do it next year. So we all have that. It's there for us to be that person for other people, and share and be honest and open, and not just put it out there like, yeah, no problem. Did it. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And I think that, how should I say this?
Go on.
I would be very hesitant. If you're looking at ways to say like, okay, well, am I that person? And I'm sure, like we even kind of joked about it. Like, you're going to go do this Ironman. You're an incredibly fit athlete. Half Ironman. Yes.
Half Iron woman.
Half Iron woman. You're an incredibly fit woman. You're going to do this Half Ironman, and there's going to be folks who, yes, on your day-to-day, they can't do what you're doing. They can't do a muscle up. They can't deadlift half their body weight. They can't jump on a 12-inch box. Like, there's all these things. And it's natural to have that, and especially in CrossFit, because CrossFit is the most defensive it's some of the most defensive populations ever, and it's like, that's weakness. Right. So it's like, yeah, but look at what I can do. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine, but like, you can't do that either. So what are we talking about? Right. And it's all made up. It's all fabricated. But it's natural to be like, you know, like, just like that's human nature. Yeah. So if it's like, okay, check, I get that. I might have that, a little bit of like defensiveness or whatever, and maybe that defensiveness then looks like attacking someone else or aggression. It doesn't have to be mean. You're not an awful person. You're a human being. Yeah. How can I improve then?
But what were you getting at? You would be amazed at, what was the part?
I don't know. Hold on. I'm getting there, maybe. Okay. I think that one of the ways that you can self-assess and say, like, I want to identify some things for me to improve my mindset, because mindset is that form of self-communication, right? How many times are you saying to yourself when viewing other things, of course, like, of course they did that. Of course they did that.
It's so easy for them.
And how many times are you being dismissive of someone else? Right. And, you know, I think that I have felt that, and it's 100% possibly an insecurity on my end, without a doubt. And I'm sensitive to it, and for whatever. But I have felt that. Like, of course he was a Green Beret. He was a college All-American, Hall of Fame, like, stud athlete. Had a brother in the Air Force, as if that mattered. You know, like, of course this, of course that. And it's like, hey, check it out. Like, I don't know if you're trying to be nice, but you're actually dismissing all of it. You're dismissing everything. Right. You're also dismissing and ignoring and just eliminating any potential for you to grow. So you're
because
breaking someone down,
if you're and you're seeing that it was
limiting yourself.
Right, because you are choosing to push aside the acknowledgement of the hard work. Because if you acknowledge the hard work and you recognize the reason that was achieved was basically due to just raw hard work and discipline, we're going to talk about that on another podcast.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Then, of course, you have to say, like, wow, anybody could do that. I could do that.
Right.
But I'm not.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
And shit, what's that say about me? Right. And, you know, at that point, there's a fork in the road. And I think that's where the communication is like, okay, wow, I'm seeing this. What does that say about me? Well, yes, maybe I don't have belief. And then it can be about you. But if you don't acknowledge that and you don't have that conversation and you just continue to dismiss people, and, you know, it's kind of like, that's sad. That's sad because you're not going to grow. You're not going to be aware. And it's kind of a strange thing to experience, like, in this effort. And it was, you know, it was cool. We talked about the CrossFit community. Like, you know, CrossFit has kind of poo-pooed the endurance community as like, oh, they're not fit, like, by their standards. Yeah. But one of the things I said to you, and actually, you know, Chris Hinshaw and I had this discussion about just the mental side of endurance. And he's was a Ironman, what's it called when you win?
Winner?
Well,
a champion?
An accolade, like whatever.
A world-renowned,
yes,
high-level premier winner.
It'll come to me. But,
what are you saying?
You know, he was commenting on that like, in CrossFit, we don't really go through, like, okay, some workout that's maybe an hour is the longest. And I think that's where, if you talk to people, emotions and thoughts to kind of, you're going to have dips. And that's, you know, something obviously between the ears. That's one of the reasons why the events take you through that. I mean, you asked me on the way home, like, should I do something like this? And I mean, sure, you could. it's just funny because it was very much a between the ears event where that is the experience.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about the physical. So it was cool to come into the gym yesterday and have people who CrossFit, that's their general form of exercise, kind of really congratulate me or say like how that was, you know, good job.
Yeah, it's nice to
understanding that maybe that gap, like, just the challenge in it was really just the enduring and something very different from what we do on a day-to-day. So
yeah, it's interesting because I don't think I think a lot of people that CrossFit I think it's easy to, what am I trying to say? I think a lot of people that CrossFit look at like what they've done and overcome and challenge, and they get that feeling at the end of it. And of course, a lot of people, like, there's doubt and stuff, but like really being clear with what the hell is happening between your ears.
Yeah.
And also like emotionally, and that feeling or that thought, and that highway between like the brain and the gut kind of deal. And we've talked about it a lot in developing that and paving that and marking it with lines and like understanding the flows of traffic, and that highway between your brain and your gut, let's just say, right? Your thoughts and your feelings. That's mindset avenue, or that's mental toughness road. Like that highway is so important. Or if you don't want to think about it like that, thinking about it like, okay, you're a translator. Like your mindset and your mental toughness is a translation between those for something, and then to express or then to act.
And in CrossFit you don't have as much time.
Right. So for a lot of CrossFitters, it's like, what do? Well, it's like ADHD on steroids.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, I don't really have to. There's no time. Everybody counts. Next workout, don't count.
I know. Yeah.
Don't count your rounds. Like, stop. Like, don't count. And with some of that, like, don't count.
Right, because you can't count and be aware at the same time. If you're counting, it's a distraction to what you're thinking, because it's giving your mind something to focus on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to. I mean, it is. It's hard.
I think
it
depends on what you're. Sure, I think. Yeah, I think you can. I don't actually agree with you on that. Although I know what you're saying. So one of the things is, if it's like 5 to 7 reps, right? You're so focused on moving on to the next that you're generally not present with it now. If you're counting to like 50 or 100, sure, there's going to be that. And there's going to be that active involvement, but also room for the mind to kind of float. But like, I guess what I'm saying is, so much I think of CrossFit and those types of workouts misguide people into looking at task accomplishment. And the opportunity is there for for mindset, for all this, but like, you're just not in it long enough. And some of that stuff too, like, it takes more than just one occurrence of a thought.
Sure.
Most people in a workout get to that point the first time of maybe needing to drop the bar, come off the rings, or get some water, do whatever, take a rest, and they take it. In single modality stuff, you're not afforded that. Like, you can, but like you can actually go a little bit more. And so I think that,
well, and there's a break. It's part of the deal. Like, it's also a different kind of. It's just a different kind of, I need a break. Like, well, I can't do another muscle because I'll fail.
Sure, yeah.
It's very different from like, I don't want to keep shuffling along because my hips hurt. It's, I wasn't in pain. Like, it wasn't like my back or my ankle was broken and I could not progress forward.
Right.
So, and I just think that is the value of the movement of, what you do with people is kind of taking people through that experience. So, so.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's it.
All right. Well, that's like an hour, almost an hour and 10. So I think it's a good time to kind of downshift. So I made a video,
You did. A gift.
a gift that I will share with everybody, if it's okay with you. It's already on YouTube, so
Okay.
Okay. Yes, it's called Endure, and it's a behind-the-scenes look at your training. If you're looking for like, what did you do, and 4x8, and 30-minute tempo run, like don't even bother, because it's not about that, because that stuff's boring anyway. This is more about a glimpse into some of your mindset, some of the conversations we had, just being there for you. Captures you before and after a couple training events. It does not capture the long conversations we had. You're still obviously my wife first and foremost, and some of the conversations and whatnot were inappropriate to record and to film.
That sounds weird.
Unfortunately, it wasn't weird. It was just like, I need to support you also as my wife, and so I was gonna be like, hey, okay, just hold on, let's just break the camera. So like privacy in that way. But I think it provides a decent glimpse into some of the stuff we were working. I think it represented what we worked on quite a bit, and obviously the individual coaching kind of conversations and whatnot happened, outside of that. And
it's a nice thing that I can have to, as we talk about like things, as much as like even now thinking about that run, when I was doing it, I was thinking, I will not forget this. I will not forget what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And now,
it's fleeting.
I forgot a lot.
Yeah, it's fleeting.
So not to say that it recorded all that stuff, but like it's a really nice thing to have to look back on, and not just just.
Yeah, and I do not have footage of you crossing the finish line.
No, you don't.
And that is on purpose.
Ironman does. They sent me photos.
Oh, did
I
they?
will not be purchasing them.
Anyway, because this was not about you finishing.
Yeah.
This was about how you got there. So, that's very clear. And, I used to, on all of my training runs, and even still today, like, you always finish strong. I don't care. And some of that is like, how do you build belief? And I put a video up about it. And, I think that doing things in the presence of adversity does build belief, because you're questioning it. Like, that's what adversity is, questioning yourself. And so you always finish strong. And that's a mindset. That is a way. And when you do that over the course of 30 years, like, think about how many reps you'll get. That could be a day, that could be a conversation, like, that could be a night, like, hey, we're going to finish this day strong. And that might be like just saying, hey, I love you. Obviously, from a physical training standpoint, it's like, like, that's why it kills me inside when people walk through the door on a run.
I know.
It's like, no.
That and stopping just 2 seconds before the clock beeps. Like, just continue. But I did, I was proud of that. That was something too. I was like, okay, I can, like, at this point, there's not a question of like, well, what if my legs give out or I can't make it? Like, I will run, and if I stop, then at least I'm close enough that I can crawl through the finish. So, I hit the turnaround. I think at that point there's like 1,200 meters, and it's pretty much a downhill. And I did, I started picking up the pace. Now, I felt like I was sprinting.
I mean, it's a miracle I captured it on camera.
I mean, it was so
I had the
fast.
frame rate up, like,
I know.
Yeah, it was basically a cheetah.
But it was funny because when I saw the video, I'm like, it felt at that point like it was just incredible, and it wasn't that fast, but the effort was there.
Yep.
I definitely finished strong. So.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that for people, like, finish strong, always finish strong, and you finish strong for yourself, and like, that's yours. That is something you can control. That is something you own, and that is something that, like, you must protect, and you must honor it, and that's something that I have done my entire life, and I think was a big reason why I was a very good athlete, and was able to do things that were much harder than just sports and stuff and doing well. So that video is out. It's on YouTube. Indoor is the name of it.
Great.
If you would like to subscribe to the YouTube, you can do that. That would be cool. I don't know what it's for.
Subscribe.
But subscribe. Hey, give it a subscription.
All right.
Yeah, there's that. What else do we have, though? I was going to say something else. Oh, questions. Yeah, keep sending questions. Anthony, thank you. That was huge. That was a gift you provided us, so thank you.
Yeah, we have
questions
some
are
stuff
welcome.
coming up.
We have some stuff coming up. What is some stuff coming up? What is it?
Well, I don't think we're going to share quite details, but...
Oh, another tease. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, no, we have committed to, like, some specialty focus.
Yeah, we'll be growing between the years.
Yeah.
And
that's exciting. We have the flag thing tonight, but that's by tomorrow.
Yeah, by the time
launched,
you hear this, we'll be done.
Yeah. So
the other thing is, I guess to say this, because I have gotten some questions about it and whatnot. Yes, I do coaching. I do work with individuals. I do work with people in a coaching relationship. And one of the things about it is that it is not only about physical stuff. It's not only about CrossFit. In fact, it's less about that and more about you. So if you are interested in some personal coaching, then certainly reach out and we can start that conversation.
Yeah, and yes, it's always awkward because you're my husband, but this experience and others as well, but especially this experience because it was probably the biggest thing I've done for myself outside of my comfort zone.
Really? Yeah. I guess so.
I think, one of the biggest takeaways was just how impactful your coaching was. And I know it's like to say, like, I was able to do that because of you. I know that sounds like, well, okay, no, I had that belief myself, but the value I extracted out of it and the training and, if you're trying to qualify for the world championships and triathlons, you wouldn't be someone's triathlon coach.
No.
But anything challenging that someone wants to do, arguably, it is not, the physical that is probably going to be what is holding them back. So that side of that coaching for me was, it was everything. So definitely things for people to consider if they're embarking on something or want to take something on and want, what you did was also not make it wasn't like you gave me advice. I mean, no. It was presenting questions to me and I had to do the work.
For sure.
But I don't know if having not had you presenting questions and being a guide for me, I really don't know that I would have known what work to do. So it's really, that's incredible. That's a very incredible gift that you have.
Well, thanks. Yep, there's that. And I feel like there was one other thing, though. No, I guess not.
All right.
All right, well, until next time.
Bye.